Beep. Live from Wellston, Georgia, it's the Wartown Times Sheriff Shootout Special 2024. Pew pew.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Wartown Times Sheriff Shootout Special. I'm your humble author, narrator, and fictional character, Daniel Louis Crumpton. Recording from the newest addition to the family, the USS Midna NCC 4184. It is, as of this recording, August the 27th. And for those of you in Wartown or in Georgia, you are aware that, old Rob there has decided to stop being as cruel as it is insisted on being this summer, and has given us some mercy. So there's a little bit of chill in the air, there's a breeze that you can feel, and over here we like to call it Hannibal season. It's a good time for introspection and getting in the kitchen and cooking some fine meals, and harvest is almost over, so I call it Hannibal season. Huge literary fan. So if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Anyway, it being August the 27th, 2024, it's been quite a few weeks since the Sonya Massey murder, and thanks to the wonders of technology, a lot of other stories have come out indicating what I've been trying to emphasize, which is there is a systemic problem in peacekeeping industries and police forces across the country. And so while this is a Sheriff Shootout special episode, it won't focus completely on the Houston County Sheriff's race, though it does fit into the context of why we should really be engaged and informed about such things as sheriff's races, not just in Wartown and Houston County, but across the nation right now in American history specifically, especially in the next 4 years. It's really going to make a lot of difference, folks. So as I kind of gave you guys a teaser in the last episode, we prepared in light of the Sonya Massey murder and controversy nationally and internationally. We look, I know that there are a lot of people get on the internet and do their thing to point out problems for clickbait or for whatever their motivations are. And I've always been of the mindset that if you bring me a problem, bring me a solution. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, stick to my own principles. And I'm not just pointing out problems just for the sake of pointing out problems, but want to do my part in trying to bring solutions to the problems that I'm aware of, specifically in the area where I live, because it's where we keep all of our stuff. That being the case, in the last episode, I gave you guys a sneak peek at something that I think could be a workable solution for incidences such as Sonya Massey in our community here in Wartown. So it's, I highly discourage Americans from waiting for a federal government or a nanny state or anything like that to tell us what we are supposed to do or what we can do. I don't believe that is what this country was founded on or what the American spirit is all about. In my opinion, I think that local communities can govern themselves. I think that we know what's best for certain areas and certain departments and certain problems and solutions within our own community better than anybody in the District of Columbia. Sorry, I just believe in Wartown enough to think that we can kind of do things ourselves. So we prepared a mission statement for policing/peacekeeping reform here in Warner Robins. And again, as I said in the last episode, it's not a perfect mission statement. It's clay on the wheel for us to do something to try to prevent incidents like Sonya Massey or, escalation against the residents by people behind a badge from going into violence or destroying lives over infractions of policy, statutes, codes, acts, or ordinances, right? And that's what the mission statement for policing and peacekeeping reform is about. And so, whenever it was drafted, it was carefully thought out in a way that I think shouldn't have too many objections, really, but could also be perfected. That being the case, myself and the lovely Mona Lucia, we saw an opportunity to, engage with our local government, to be, active residents, concerned residents, and to participate, as we are often invited to do in local government. And of course, there was a meet with the mayor. Mayor LaRhonda Patrick here, she's doing a great job of creating avenues and venues where residents can come and express themselves and be heard and engage. And so wanted to be proactive with this mission statement. And so we did go to the meet with the mayor function with this specific policing / peacekeeping reform initiative. And I'll tell you a little story time. You know, I want to make a clear distinction about some things here as that ambulance passes by. I want to make a clear distinction between what we're trying to accomplish here and what it could be perceived to be, and what it is most certainly not. And I think that illustration will come across in a couple of stories I'm going to relay to you. When we went to the meet with the mayor function, we were sitting in the lobby waiting for our turn, and there was another woman there, and we struck up a conversation. And of course, it got onto the topic of, you know, trauma and alleviation from trauma. And of course, everywhere I go, I mention the Cannasense Total Wellness Foundation, the benefits of plant medicine, because I'm a huge advocate, as it's positively benefited me and countless others across the country. So we were having this conversation with another resident of Wartown about cannabis and cannabis-related issues and protections and laws and things like that. And there was a peace officer in the room who was listening halfway, not listening, but listening. And the woman who I was having the conversation with, she had a question. And the question was along the lines of, well, if you're on your front porch and you're smoking reefer, as she referred to it, which I always like to correct people, it's cannabis, and the smoke drifts over into my property, and I have to call 911 or whatever. And she was asking a legitimate question. She was like, how are things like that dealt with in regard to a medical cannabis patient, their medicine, and then other people who may not be aware of the patient's rights and ability to partake of their medicine? And, you know, me seeing a peace officer in the room, I said, well, let's bring him in on the conversation. You know, I was unaware of who this peace officer was, but it was the Assistant Chief of Police, Todd Edwards. And this was the first time I've ever met the Chief of Police, Todd Edwards. And I'm not going to, even though it wasn't a private conversation, as he was in his official capacity as a servant to the public, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but I will give you the overall of the conversation. For one, it was a great conversation, and by the end of that conversation, I was absolutely convinced that the Assistant Chief of Police, Todd Edwards, is an honorable man with a good head on his shoulders, with a common sense view of specifically the issue of cannabis and cannabis rights. And, you know, again, I'm not going to put words in his mouth. You're free to contact him and ask him what his take is on it. I will say that from my point of view, the Assistant Chief of Police, Mr. Edwards, had it right. I mean, he understood very much that people who have to deal with anxiety or trauma or unseen illnesses should not be stigmatized or criminalized for how they choose to get well or stay well. And then our conversation progressed to me explaining to him that, you know, I am extremely empathetic and I'm aware of the trauma, anxiety, and emotional distress that simply being behind a badge can cause. Like, I don't believe that men and women who are in peacekeeping, whether you want to call it law enforcement or being a peace officer, I prefer peace over enforcement, but you can't be so ignorant as to think that these are not very prevalent issues in their lives. I mean, look at what they do for a living, right? And he was very much aware of it. I mean, he's the Assistant Chief of Police. I'm pretty sure that in his career, he has seen personally a lot of things that you can't quite shake in your noggin. You know, as our discussion progressed, we talked about, people that we've lost due to not being able to manage some of these issues, and how horrific that is. And I asked him, I was like, well, hey, now that we're on the topic, if there's anybody who I think actually would benefit greatly from doctor recommended, lab tested, organic, safe medical cannabis, I think it would be people behind a badge. And so we got on that conversation of, well, how does it work with the state of Georgia and police officers when it comes to what medications they can take for such things? And right there the rubber started to meet the road on where a positive impact by we the people can be made with men and women behind the badge. Because from my understanding, people who wear a badge in the state of Georgia can be on medication for such things as long as they're prescribed and X, Y, and Z. However, due to statutes, codes, acts, and ordinances in this state, and rules with the Peace Officer Society and the governor, like, cannabis would get them fired or something like that. And I remember, like, again, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but it's like, it seemed to me that the assistant chief of police probably thought, in my opinion, that a lot of men and women behind a badge could benefit too. And so I was like, well, where can we start to change that together? You know what I mean? Like, me as somebody who's trying to make a positive difference and do some good, what can I do to help you guys have that right to be able to partake of plant medicine over big pharma medicine for such issues? What can I do? He gave me some pointers, and we exchanged contact information, and we discussed possibly having a meeting between representatives from the Cannabis Foundation and the Warner Robins Police Department, including himself and Chief of Police Wayne Fisher, on where we can work together to make change in that area in our state and in our community. But that's a different story. If that meeting takes place, if that initiative is reciprocated from the Warner Robins Police Department of the city government, that's to be announced. I don't know. It's still in the embryo phases. But the conversation was had, and again, I want to make the distinction that my vocalizations about issues of a systemic nature in peacekeeping are not coming from an avenue of fuck the police or fuck the government, and excuse my language, but it's mine. That's not where I'm coming from at all. I know that type of an attitude is very, very short-sighted, not productive, isn't helping anybody solve any problems. It's just exacerbating the problems that are already there. I do not believe that all police officers are inherently bad, evil, or thugs. I don't believe that. I don't believe that philosophically. I believe that, like Hannibal Lecter would say, if you want to see true horror, look in the face of the crowd. And I choose to often, when possible and feasible, not look into the face of crowds. And I choose to, at first, and if feasible entirely, look at individuals. And I know that men and women behind a badge are individuals. I know that they have families, that they have loved ones, that they have emotions, just like you and me, right? And it is my endeavor to try to treat them that way before you get into, this confrontational type back and forth that's just kind of default on either party, right? On we the people's party or on their party. That being said, I'm not of the mindset that all cops or all government, that's an ignorant, short-sighted point of view in my opinion. However, I think that something is not quite right in the culture of peacekeeping or policing, specifically in this day and age, when those one bad apples can get through the cracks to give an entire industry a black eye and a bad reputation. I think that if there's that chink in the armor of the industry, then that needs to be addressed. And that's kind of the endeavor with the reform mission statement that we brought to the meet with the mayor. And of course, again, had a wonderful conversation with the assistant chief of police. Looking forward to any future meetings with him to discuss what we can do in areas where it's mutually beneficial. And then so we took the initiative in, and we sat down with Madam Mayor LaRhonda Patrick. And I consider myself her friend. I think she considers me her friend, and I know I could probably chat her up outside of functions like this on issues like that. But I am also of the mindset that I understand that people wear different hats in life, and whenever you're in the capacity of, say, Madam Mayor, I know that I have to relate to you in that way. And then if it's personal and you're wearing the personal hat, I can relate to you in that way. And again, personally, I love LaRhonda. I pray for her every day. But when it comes to the relation of her as the mayor, I think that she's doing a fantastic job. But I don't agree with everything that she does in that capacity. And there is a relationship there where that kind of a dialogue can be had without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, in areas where we disagree, or where, I certainly wouldn't do certain things that she's done. Anyway, I digress. The point was to take the peacekeeping, policing, reform mission statement to her and just say, hey, I don't know if you're aware of the Sonya Massey murder, which of course she was. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if it fires you up as much as it fires me up, and you feel compelled to address this type of issue as much as I do. Maybe the city government hasn't had these conversations. Maybe they don't even know where to start if they did. And I feel you. I empathize, because it's a sticky situation. However, I have some ideas that I'd like to submit to the city government to begin a dialogue for the purpose of bridging those gaps between we the people and people who are behind a badge, and doing what we can to put things in place to prevent that from happening here. Prevent murders from happening, by a badge that were unnecessary, or, unnecessary use of force, which, and that's going to be perspective on whichever side of the aisle or whichever side of the badge once again. And I got my perspective for sure. So we discussed it. We went over it. I had copies for her, as well as Police Chief Wayne Fisher and every member of City Council to get this conversation started. And again, won't put words in her mouth, won't tell you exactly what was said there, even though it wasn't in a private capacity, but I try to be respectful. But, she encouraged yours truly to make sure that all of City Council gets a copy of the mission statement, which is for peacekeeping and policing reform, to which I followed her up on. Now, that being the case, the next City Council meeting where such a feat could be accomplished was held at Fellowship Baptist Church, where there was a City Council meeting and Town Hall meeting where the public could engage with their local government, and local government could interact back. So me and the Wartown Times team showed up to this event with, once again, copies, hard copies of this mission statement. Policing reform, peacekeeping policing reform initiative could be given to each and every member of City Council. So now, when we got there, it was explained to us that we had 1 minute to speak. Now, let me go off on a tangent real quick, guys. And I get further into this here in a minute. Probably a better idea to not put such restrictive time constraints when the endeavor is to get the community involved and feel like they're heard. It's like, I don't know who was responsible for that. Just here's some constructive criticism. If you're going to have a town hall meeting, be willing to let people utilize their First Amendment to ad nauseum. If the motivation for the town hall meeting is to legitimately hear feedback, and I get it. Some people would get up there and drone on for hours. I'm probably that guy, if given the chance, but I would sound good. Anywho, some people not so much. They would talk about whatever. And I get that. So I understand that, hey, we got to do something to keep that from happening. But 1 minute is a little bit egregious. It's a lot of pressure when you're addressing those who you perceive to be in power for a lot of people. And so it's difficult to actually have useful conversation in that time constraint. Nevertheless, so I was going to utilize that time to make it known to city government as well as all of you that this idea for policing/peacekeeping reform with initiatives that can be implemented here and not have to wait for a federal government stamp attached to some grants that, anyway, well, that's another, you're right. So I wanted to take that opportunity to do that. Now, prior to getting up to speak, getting in line to speak and make this issue known, I don't know the gentleman, but a gentleman by the name of Tyrone Brown got up to the mic to address his concerns. I've never met Tyrone Brown. I'd like to talk to Tyrone Brown. If you're watching this, Mr. Brown, wartowntimes@gmail.com. I want to hear your story and do a podcast with you about what you addressed. So Mr. Brown got up, and I'm going to play what he had to say, which ironically was the same night that I wanted to present this mission statement. So here you go.
Good evening again. My name is Tyrone Brown. I'll need some clarification on citations when preferably moving violations,
Come
speeding,
close to the mic, sir.
moving violations with police officers. Me and my wife had a bad experience with the moving violations and the way it was conducted. I'm talking about, was it always a law to sign? You have to sign your ticket or else you could go be arrested. I thought once, when I moved here in 2009, it wasn't like that. At least they wasn't enforcing that. And we had bad experience in that, especially when they just asked them to explain why you have to sign the ticket. And once, well, I'm gonna tell you, my wife asked that question, she was jerked out the car and handcuffed. And said that because she didn't want to sign the ticket. She didn't say she did not want to sign the ticket. She just wanted to know why. And it was very, just like that. And I just wanted to know, why is there so much confrontation when it comes to just a speeding ticket?
Thank you, sir. I do apologize that that's happened, and we're going to try to answer this question really quickly by checking state statute. If there's anyone from the PD who'd like to make a comment, you definitely have the opportunity to do so at the podium.
I'm Chief Fisher for the Warner Robins Police Department. I want to thank you for taking this time to come before us to bring these thoughts and concerns. I wish to convey to the group here, first and foremost, this first that I'm hearing of this matter, of which so it's rather difficult for me to provide an overall encompassing answer or response to the situation. I look forward to an opportunity to meeting with you to get further details in regards to it so I can have a fuller understanding about the facts and circumstances that took place surrounding that event in and of itself. But given the limited information which you've provided here, and this being the first point to which I've heard, it would be inappropriate for me to try to formulate a response to you on this matter.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, we have the city attorney who has a little bit to add to this. And Chief is correct, he can't respond to your exact situation. He can only respond according to policy and what the law states. So city attorney is going to now tell us what the law states regarding that issue.
So that you can be assured that, at least as far as the law is concerned, it was not individualized, but it is a requirement that applies to all citizens, it appears. It is OCGA 40-13-2.1, which speaks to requiring a signature on a traffic citation. It's in lieu of bail, so your signature is that you will appear to have your citation heard. It is not an admission of guilt. But rather it is to sign for your appearance in lieu of bail. And that is that statute. I'd be happy to talk with you further about it. And I think, as the Chief said, about the situation itself with additional information to help fully resolve any gaps that may have occurred there.
Thank you, Attorney Mize. All right.
I just want to say that I apologize that your wife had to go through that good information.
So you have an incident I was unaware of until this, of a man and his wife probably traumatized due to an escalation in use of force over a citation. And again, I don't have all the facts either yet, where, somebody, behind a badge put their hands on somebody else and I guess allegedly put them in handcuffs, and it just escalated over a traffic thing with no victim, right? So I'm not speaking in a vacuum. I'm not speaking out of school. I'm speaking to an experience that we the people are having on the other side of the badge. And Mr. Brown's grievance there is evidence of that. Now, Police Chief Wayne Fisher, he did the best he could with the information that he had, and to his credit, and again, prior to this event, I'd never personally met Police Chief Wayne Fisher, but to his credit, I watched. He got up and he went over to speak to the gentleman for quite some time and was taking some studious notes. And it appeared to me that Police Chief Wayne Fisher had every endeavor to remedy that situation, to get to the bottom of it. And that's great. I like that. I like seeing that, and I hope that he does. And again, if the Browns do decide to come on the Wartown Times and relay their story, I want to be absolutely clear. My motivation is not to put a black eye on the Warner Robins Police Department or the Houston County Sheriff's Department, to besmirch them or, smear them. That's not the motivation. The motivation is these incidences are happening in our community, and I would like to hear them vocalize how much it's impacted them, as it impacts anyone who's ever had such a situation occur to them. So that's my motivation, so we can have these uncomfortable conversations and do things to prevent them from occurring further. So let that be known. Then, of course, it was my turn to get up and talk for 1 minute. 1 minute, again, is very constrained, but here we go.
Thank you, City Council, Madam Mayor. Minister Daniel Louis Crumpton, contributor to the Wartown Times and a nationwide caregiver for Cannasense Total Wellness. And I'm here to serve, not to ask a question. And what compels me to be here is in light of the tragic murder of Sonya Massey that anybody with a cell phone witnessed on TikTok, which is indicative of a national problem that is systemic in our peacekeeping force, not on individuals, Police Chief Wayne Fisher, but in a way that policing has been done in our country since at least 9/11. And so after, having witnessed that murder of Sonya Massey and asking myself, what can be done? And I don't want to be the kind of person to wait for the federal government or some, nanny state to tell us what we can do here in Wartown to prevent things like Sonya Massey, which is just one incident in a long line of incidents where peacekeepers, peace officers behind a badge either overstep or escalate in situations where they shouldn't. So myself, my team, and some community leaders just wanted to put together some ideas of things that can be done, a framework here in Warner Robins and in Houston County to prevent these types of incidents, and offer it to City Council and to Police Chief Wayne Fisher to take a look at, to see what we can incorporate to prevent this type of thing. And before I go, I do want to remind people, we often think that this is some legal document, or this is a contract between we the people and the government, and it is. But let's not forget in this house of worship that when our founders framed this, they looked at one innocent man who was completely sinless and said, what went wrong with that guy's trial? And then reversed engineered it into this. So if any of you in this wonderful house of worship don't have a copy of this and don't understand that this is a bridge between church and state, you can ask the lovely Mona Lucia over there. We have free pocket constitutions that you can grab to understand what this really, really means. And so we wanted to hand this to Sergeant Wilcox to council to take a look at.
Jeremy, can you get... Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr.
That's
Crumpton.
my time.
Appreciate it.
That being the case, I'm pretty sure that Mr. Jeremy Furman, who is legitimately a cool guy, did his due diligence to ensure that Madam Mayor, who already had a copy, but City Council, Police Chief Wayne Fisher, et cetera, got a copy of that mission statement. And I intend to follow up to make sure that they did. But more story time. when the event was kind of wrapping up and it was over, I did take it upon myself to pass out. We did get to pass out a lot of pocket constitutions. A lot of people were raising their hands for some pocket constitutions, and it was great. Because that's what it's about, man. And we were happy to give those out. But I did take it upon myself to actually go and introduce myself personally to Police Chief Wayne Fisher, shook his hand, and let him know that, hey, I've emailed the Assistant Chief of Police about a possible meeting, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the Warner Robins Police Department to see when we get started, and thanked him for his service, told him to stay well. And I thought that was a great experience, a great interaction. He seemed very receptive to what I had to say. And then, ironically enough, this is a Sheriff Shootout special. We did see candidate Matt Moulton for sheriff, for Houston County Sheriff, at the event. He was at the event, and which really had me excited because I was like, I don't think he's been getting my messages from his campaign staff, and I would love to actually go meet Matt Moulton for sheriff and have the conversation with him about these things, as well as the 30-question questionnaire that we've submitted to his campaign and to his social media director, as well as his email several times. I was very excited that he was there because I was like, great, I just so happen to have a hard copy of the 30 questions for constitutional sheriffs that I'd like to put in his hand. But unfortunately, when I got up to the mic and kind of looked out into the crowd, I saw that him and his staff, or his people, they were raptured. They left. They were gone. I don't know what that was. Maybe he had a personal thing that he had to go take care of, but he wasn't there. So unfortunately, I did not get to put the 30 questions in Matt Moulton's hand and shake his hand and introduce myself and get the cut of his jib, as I like to say. So that was interesting. Now, more story time, more allegorical, not allegorical, but actual story that you might want to know is, whenever me and the lovely Mona Lucia went out to the USS Midna NCC 4184, she was showing out. She had a flat tire, right? So, and it just so happened that there was no jack in the trunk because yours truly had just removed it the day before to put things in. Anyway, I had a flat tire. I needed some assistance. So I ran back in and ran into candidate for sheriff Arthur Lee Harris, who I've been speaking with on a very friendly basis. And so he was still there. And we chatted it up for a minute. But I'm like, all right, I need to be protected and served from this flat tire. And there was an officer there who I said, hey man, you got a jack, because I would ask a peace officer who's there to protect and serve. And his name was Officer Taylor. I didn't catch his first name, but he was more than happy to come out and assist, man. And so we went outside. He pulled his cruiser around, and he got the jack out of the back of the car. And, as I'm, down there doing the thing with the lug nuts, fighting with it, he wanted to relay to me. He said, Mr. Crumpton, I just want you to know that the officer who shot Sonya Massey is not a reflection of who we are. And I believe that the Warner Robins Police Department, and he said that he's one of the guys who trained the new officers coming in, and admittedly he said, you never know if some of the things you train them is going to stick or not stick. But he said that he was of the opinion that the Warner Robins Police Force is one of the best police forces in the country. And, that's his experience. That's his personal take, and I respect that. But he wanted to let me know that when bad cops like Officer Grayson, who murdered Sonya Massey, do that, it makes the whole force look bad, and good cops hate cops like that just as much as we the people. And I looked at Officer Taylor and I said, man, I know. I know that's not what I'm trying to communicate if that's what's being perceived. I know that Grayson and other officers who escalate situations to such a ridiculous point are not the rule. I'm aware of that. Where my concern is how they get through the gate, right? And, And then it got a little funnier because I was like, Officer Taylor, do you know me? Do you know what? And he goes, yeah, I arrested you. A long time ago, Officer Taylor actually arrested me for a disagreement that was had with myself and the Warner Robins Police Department during a very interesting time in my life.
Sorry, I had to beam over to the bridge of the USS Enterprise to finish this. Anyway, it got a little funny because Officer Taylor had arrested me over a disagreement on whether or not I was supposed to identify in a certain situation, and the Warner Robins Police Department was of the opinion that I was to identify, and I was of the knowledge that no, I'm not going to do that, and so we had that disagreement, and it was funny because I said, Officer Taylor, that case was dismissed, and we shared a laugh right there. So Daniel Louis Crumpton won, Officer Taylor of the Warner Robins Police Department. Anyway, and then I told him, I said, man, don't arrest me anymore, dude. Anyway, but and that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to relay to you guys is the initiative that we're trying to take here with the Wartown Times is something that is of mutual benefit to those behind a badge. And anybody who has perused any of the material that I have put out, if you look at it with an unbiased, unreactionary, knee-jerk type of an attitude, you will see that that is what it is. And so that being the case, I did want to follow up with City Council, Police Chief Wayne Fisher, and of course all of you, because I want you guys to be involved with this initiative. I think you really need to be. And I did want to follow up, and so I have drafted this email that is going to be sent to all of our city council members, as well as Police Chief Wayne Fisher, Assistant Chief of Police Ed Toddwards. I almost, part of me sometimes says name dyslexia. The Chief of Police and the Assistant Chief of Police and other relevant employees of the city. So let me go ahead and do my screen share here, and I'll read you this email that is going to be following up on this initiative. So anywho, this is the email that I'm about to send to all of the appropriate people within city government, as well as the Warner Robins Police Department and the press, to keep everybody fully informed, engaged, and aware of what is occurring. Because again, at the town hall meeting, I didn't get any kind of a response or anything in an official capacity, and I really do want one. So I know you guys do who've sent me messages saying that you think this is very rational, what I'm proposing here. And so here's how the email goes. Greetings, Madam Mayor, Council, City employees. I want to extend my thanks to each of you for hosting the recent town hall meeting and encouraging the residents of Warner Robins to be more engaged, vocal, and heard with their local elected and appointed servants. Such functions do go a long way in showing that the residents' investments within this community are not wasted on deaf ears. Though I would, however, suggest for future engagements, the respect of the First Amendment not be infringed with what many would consider unreasonable time constraints, which invariably could defeat the purpose of having a town hall meeting at all. Trying to make coherent points or have productive discussions under a ticking clock tends to derail valuable interactions from the public in the least and could dissuade any participation from the public at the most. Just food for thought on future town hall meetings you might want to consider. That being said, I am sending each of you this email to follow up with the presentation of a starting point with peace officer/policing reform as outlined in the document that was given to Mr. Furman at the town hall meeting. While I am more than confident that Jeremy did his due diligence to ensure that each of you received your copy to review, I nevertheless am compelled to also provide you with a digital copy which will be attached to this email. Whereas in previous communications to each of you, I have not requested nor received responses. That is not the expectation here, as I am requesting responses and candid thoughts that are not deferred to other departments or experts on the subject matter from each recipient. Given the topic, I believe that is a reasonable expectation from your favorite constituent. As stated at the town hall meeting, the recent murder of Sonya Massey by an Illinois deputy from the office of the sheriff is no doubt unknown to any of you. This senseless death, which made national and international news, is one in a long list which ultimately becomes an elephant in the room of how peacekeeping/policing is done in America as a whole. It could no longer be said that these are isolated incidents. The blame can no longer be dismissed with the phrase one bad apple. The cold-blooded murder of Sonya Massey by an individual who can be assumed to have taken an oath to protect and defend is a clear indicator, again, among many that can be referenced, that we the people are experiencing a systemic problem in the peacekeeping industry. While other cities across this country may opt to wait until their sheriff's office or police department spoil their reputation with the stigma of becoming another statistic in this horrific trend, it is my prayer that this is not the desire of Warner Robins and its employees. Crime prevention is often emphasized and utilized for the expansion of government powers over the people. Yet it is apparent that the government ought to set the example with its own in this regard, especially after Sonya Massey's sacrifice. For this cause, you are being provided with the virgin clay in the form of the attached file. To begin the tough discussions, take the vital steps, and set the example for other cities across the nation to de-escalate and diminish the number of tragedies we're all being traumatized with, starting right here at home. Again, I'm requesting as an involved and concerned resident for responses, thoughts, feelings, ideas, or otherwise from each recipient of this communication, as no longer can silence on such issues be considered anything other than consent to them. Thank you for your service to this community and stay well. Sincerely, Minister Daniel Louis Crumpton in Liberty, the Wartown Times team. So I'm sending that email to the City Council, Madam Mayor, the Chief of Police, the Assistant Chief of Police, and all relevant city employees for them to look at and have a discussion. And again, I'm not doing this to, flip off government or people behind a badge. I am heeding the call of Madam Mayor LaRhonda Patrick and City Council to be engaged and involved in the community. I'm attempting to do that. And again, like I said, you guys know I've emailed the city government before, and I didn't get any responses from any of them, my own city council person or any other. And I am very well aware that, as I've stated previously, that when individuals get into government, there is a certain script that they have to go by, and there are certain things that they can say and that they cannot say. And I do. This would be extremely. This is why I don't run for any kind of political office, because no. But I understand that. I understand that you got to be careful with what you say when you are working for the corporation or one of its subsidiaries. I get it. However, in this instance, I am requesting feedback, and again, the attitude and the motivation in which this initiative and communication is being sent is certainly not one to be badgering or harassing, but is one of an olive branch and taking local government at its word that it does want its residents to be involved and engaged. I'm being involved and engaged. I would appreciate some feedback from the city council and anybody who has an opinion about this. I mean, so anywho, that's that. Now, to bring it back home, I think it would be fair to go ahead and go over the mission statement that was sent to them and that we're talking about. Even though in the last episode we gave you a teaser, I do want to go ahead and take the opportunity officially to go over this mission statement and this initiative. So that being the case, it's a real quick read, and then we're going to wrap this one up. Mission Statement for Peacekeeping Reform, proposed by the public to Madam Mayor LaRhonda Patrick, City Council Chief Wayne Fisher, and the Housing County Sheriff's Office. Objective: to enhance public trust, accountability, and the effectiveness of peacekeeping in Warner Robins, ensuring that all officers uphold the highest standards of integrity, knowledge, and transparency in their service to the community. Commitment to transparency. 1. Live streaming mandate. We propose that all officers be required to wear body cameras and live stream their interactions with the public during active duty. Live stream footage should be securely stored and made accessible for public review in compliance with privacy laws and regulations. Regular audits of the body camera footage should be conducted to ensure compliance and address any misconduct promptly. Commitment to competency. 2. IQ and aptitude tests. We propose that all current and prospective officers undergo standardized IQ and aptitude tests. Applicants for the Sheriff's Office and Warner Robins Police Department should be required to score a minimum IQ of 115 to be considered for hiring. Fair enough. These assessments will help ensure that officers possess the critical thinking and problem-solving skills necessary for effective and fair peacekeeping. Results should be used to identify areas of professional development and continuous improvement. Constitutional knowledge. Officers should be required to pass rigorous tests on the U.S. Constitution and relevant state laws. Continuous education on constitutional rights and civil liberties should be mandated. with regular refresher courses to maintain a high level of awareness and understanding. Training programs should be designed to integrate constitutional knowledge into daily peacekeeping practices, emphasizing the protection of individual rights and freedoms, commitment to reducing civil rights infringements. 4. Traffic stops reform. To reduce the potential for civil rights infringements, we propose that traffic stops be limited to those that fall under commercial code violations. Non-commercial traffic stops should be minimized, focusing on safety and community well-being rather than punitive measures. Officers should receive training on identifying and appropriately handling commercial code violations to ensure consistency and fairness in enforcement. Implementation and oversight. 5. Independent Review Board. We propose the establishment of an independent civilian review board to oversee the implementation of these reforms. The board should consist of community leaders, legal experts, and representatives from diverse backgrounds to ensure fair and unbiased oversight. Regular reports on the progress of these initiatives should be presented to the public and city council. Community engagement. Open forums and town hall meetings. Great, we're doing that. Should be held to gather feedback from the community on the effectiveness of these measures. Peacekeeping agencies should actively seek partnerships with community organizations to foster mutual understanding and collaboration. Programs should be developed to educate the public on their rights and how to engage constructively with peacekeepers. Commitment to excellence. 7. Continuous improvement. Ongoing training and development programs should be instituted to keep officers updated on best practices in peacekeeping and community relations. Performance metrics should be established to evaluate the impact of these reforms on public safety and community trust. Officers should be encouraged to pursue advanced education and certifications to enhance their skills and knowledge. Conclusion. We, the concerned citizens of Warner Robins, are dedicated to setting a new standard for peacekeeping that prioritizes transparency, competency, and respect for constitutional rights. By adopting these measures, we aim to build a safer, more just, and more connected community for all residents. We invite Madam Mayor LaRhonda Patrick, the City Council, Police Chief Wayne Fisher, and the Houston County Sheriff's Office to support this mission and work with us to achieve these critical goals. So there you have it. Everyone on the email list at our local government has that initiative. You have that initiative. If you want a hard copy or you want a PDF of it or whatever, you can email us at wartowntimes@gmail.com, or you can find me on their Facebook, Daniel Louis Crumpton, and I'd be happy to get it to you. People who I've floated this mission statement out to, they see it for what it is, and they go, okay, well, these are reasonable things, and obviously there's going to have to be some adjustments and things like that. That's great. But we need to begin the conversation for real. That being the case, guys, like I said, what I really wanted to do in this episode is make a distinction and make it very clear that what the Wartown Times is trying to do in these regards with the Houston County Sheriff's race or in any of these endeavors is not to do, not to be a nuisance to people behind a badge or city government, but to be in collaboration. So it's like, we have on both sides of government and we the people knee-jerk reactionary responses when people say, hey, I think you could do better here or whatever, and then it can get escalatory and not good on either end. And so it's like this, it's going to take both, right? So if people who are in local government are hearing me or hearing anybody like me, and you're automatically going, oh, it's one of those, whatever that is, then you're just as guilty of what, you're accusing we the people of doing whenever they see they express that perhaps you're stepping out of line, right? And that's not going to get anywhere. Listen, I'm telling you guys, as I've been urging you the entire season of the Wartown Times, that our country is doing a thing, and our country is never going to be the same. I mean, I know it hasn't been the same since 9/11, but it's really not going to be the same. And I'm not putting these things out there about the Constitution and civil rights to be like, you guys don't know what the Constitution says. That is not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is saying, you guys better know the Constitution for the future that's coming for this country, for a lot of different reasons and for mutual benefit. Not trying to beat you over the head or play TikTok or YouTube lawyer like a lot of other people who give people like myself a bad name and a bad reputation, who try to use the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and legalese and Black's Law Dictionary and things like that to get out of personal responsibility or things that they legitimately did that harmed other people. That is not what this is about. That is not what I have ever stood for. That is not what anybody who associates with me stands for long anyway. Because if I can sense that they're trying to use the Bill of Rights or legal loopholes to escape personal responsibility when they need to be held accountable, that is not my bag, man. And I'll call somebody out loud. We, the people and patriots who believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, are asking the police to police their own. And as a sign of good faith, you know, I'm going to reciprocate that. And so, which brings me to another point. You know, it's what we're trying to do with the Wartown Times, because I know I have seen what the other spectrum does when you're all cops and all government. It doesn't do anything but get people killed and get people ostracized from one another. It doesn't work. It's not productive. It's dumb. And so I learned from my mistakes. And had I ever been of that mindset, I've looked at it and corrected that behavior. You know, as long as there's humans on this planet, there's going to have to be some kind of government. And I think it needs to be as limited as you could possibly make it. I think that's a good thing. And, you know, there's always going to have to be some form of peacekeeping. To think otherwise until, you know, the Lord Jesus comes and sets up his kingdom and we're all singing Kumbaya or Shangri-La or whatever, and humans are in the mix, you're going to have these things. So, you know, I'm not the asinine asshole about town that's delusional enough to think that, you know, that's not going to be the case. Speaking of which, you know, Archer the Space Schnoodle and Rex the Neurotic Helms Pooch, they formed a band here recently, and they did hear me kicking around some ideas in the Wartown War Room about, you know, being the town crier in an area where it's like, you know, there are, again, not every person behind a badger in government is an asshole about town, but we certainly have assholes about town. And so they heard me kind of kicking this idea around for a new segment called Asshole About Town, and Archer the Space Noodle and Rex the Neurotic Helmspooch. They formed a musical band, and they beat out this banger for that new segment, which is going to be coming out probably as soon as this is uploaded. So anyway, here is Archer the Space Noodle and Rex the Neurotic Helmspooch's new hit, Asshole About Town, which is just little appetizer of a segment called Asshole About Town that'll be coming out here shortly. Until then, I love you guys. Stay well. Until I see you on the street, be cool. Later.
War-Town's got the scoop now. Ain't it such a shame? In the alleys and the corners, playing dirty tricks. No more hiding faces. We're gonna fix assholes.